Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you're climbing into a boxing ring during the Great Depression. Not because you've dreamed of glory, or because destiny calls you to greatness, but because your stomach won't stop growling, and there's no work anywhere else. Before we tape up those aching hands, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you want the ultimate immersive experience, consider using a pair of wireless earbuds. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed so you can wear them even while sleeping. I've linked my favourite pair plus other sleep tools in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable, let's begin. You are 19 years old, which is the wrong age to be poor. Too old to be pitied as a child, too young to have earned the dignity of failure. At 19, you're supposed to be stepping into a trade, or a job, or perhaps something as far-fetched as college if you were born to the right sort of family. Instead, you wake every morning to the same emptiness, the same walls that close in like a cell, the same sound of your father muttering about no work again. He reads the classifieds with hollow eyes, rolling his last cigarettes from scraps of newspaper and tobacco dust, while your mother measures out flour as if it were a sacred commodity. You sit at the table, stomach growling, and pretend the watery broth in front of you is food. It is little more than salted water with an onion floating in it, but you spoon it up anyway because pride doesn't fill a belly. The Great Depression has devoured everything around you. Streets that once bustled now sag with silence, broken only by the shuffle of shoes towards soup kitchens or the hollow bark of foremen turning men away at factory gates. Storefronts are papered over, windows dark. The air smells of damp coal smoke and despair. You are too young to remember what prosperity felt like, but you are old enough to feel humiliated that manhood has come and found you with nothing to show. Your hands are strong but idle, the muscles of youth wasted on lifting nothing heavier than scraps of wood for the stove. Work, the thing that is supposed to make you into a man, does not exist for you. Hunger becomes your constant companion. It gnaws at you through the day, a steady throb in your belly, until it shapes the rhythm of your life. You dream of meals as other young men dream of women. Roast beef, thick bread with butter, a cup of coffee that isn't watered down to the colour of rust. Instead, you chew bread so stale it cracks your teeth, and you gulp down coffee made from burnt barley grounds, because that is all you can afford. When you pass bakeries, the smell is so rich it feels like an insult. You swallow your saliva hard enough to choke and keep walking, hands jammed in your pockets to keep from snatching something you cannot pay for. The lines are everywhere. Bread lines that snake around corners, men with their hats pulled low, boys standing shoulder to shoulder with veterans of the last war, all waiting for ladles of soup that taste like dishwater. You hate standing in those lines. You hate the way it brands you, the way people look at you with the same hollow pity they give the old men. You are 19. You should be earning your way, not waiting like a beggar for broth that tastes of nothing. Pride burns in your throat every time you hold out your tin cup, but hunger is a louder voice than pride, and pride never filled anyone's belly. You try day labour when you can get it, waiting on street corners for trucks that rarely stop. Sometimes you haul bricks until your back screams. Sometimes you shovel dirt until blisters split your palms. At the end of it, you get coins that vanish into bread and potatoes before you make it home. More often, you wait all day only to be waved off because there are too many men, too few jobs. You go home with nothing, stomach hollow, mother's eyes hardening with worry as she sets down a pot of broth that has to stretch another day. Each night you lie in bed, bones aching, stomach chewing itself, and you wonder how much longer you can last before you either starve or do something stupid. It is during these endless, bitter days that you start to hear whispers, not from anyone respectable, but from boys on corners, from men who linger outside taverns, from neighbours who seem to vanish at night and come home battered in the morning. They speak of the fight game, basement rings in back rooms of bars, in union halls, in gyms that smell like slaughterhouses. Young men climb into crude rings, swing their fists until one of them falls, and walk out with a handful of coins, if they can still walk at all. It is not respectable work, not even honest work, but it is work. A way to turn bruises into bread, black eyes into potatoes, broken knuckles into rent money. At first you scoff. Boxing is for champions, for names printed in the paper, not for anonymous young men like you. But the more you listen, the more you realise it is not about championships. It is not about belts or glory or headlines. It is about survival. You see the men who fought. They come home swollen, split, bleeding from cuts over their brows. But for a few nights, their families eat better than yours. They put meat on the table, they pay off a bit of the rent, they avoid eviction for another week. The price is pain, but pain is already free. You wake with it in your stomach every morning. You begin to think about it more. You have strength in your arms, though you've never trained them for anything beyond lifting. You know how to fight in the alleys when someone shoves you or sneers too close. You've thrown punches that landed well enough to silence a mocking mouth. What if that same punch could buy a meal? What if the next time your mother stretched flour to make bread that tastes of air, you could slap a few coins on the table and tell her to buy something real? The thought takes root, twisting in your head until it refuses to leave. There is shame in the thought, too. You know boxing is not noble. Everyone says it is a dirty business. Crooked promoters skimming purses, fights fixed to please gamblers, men discarded the moment they can no longer stand. But you also know the mills are closed, the factories silent, the shops shuttered, work is gone. And so you ask yourself, is being hit in the head really worse than watching your family starve? Is it worse than being 19 and feeling like nothing? You already feel beaten. Maybe the ring just makes it official. One night you overhear a man outside the grocer's shop talking about a gym, a basement place where young men go to learn how to fight. If fight is the right word for it. You go home with the thought gnawing at you harder than hunger ever has. You lie awake on your cot, staring at the ceiling, listening to your stomach groan, and you realise there are no other doors left open to you. The ring is not a dream, not a chance for glory. It is a transaction. You give your body, your blood, your bruises, and in return you get a little money. Enough to keep going, enough to keep breathing. The thought should horrify you, but at 19, you are too tired to feel horror. All you feel is the weight of necessity. By morning, the decision is made. You lace up your cracked boots, pull your thin coat tight against the cold, and walk out the door with purpose. You know where the gym is now, and you know what waits inside. You push down the nerves, the pride, the gnawing voice that tells you this is madness. Hunger drowns them all out. Hunger leads you down the street, past the closed factories, past the bread lines, past the hollow eyes of men older than you who will never find work again. Hunger pushes you toward that basement, toward the smell of sweat and leather you can already imagine. Hunger tells you that if you want to live, if you want your family to live, you will fight. And so you decide, you will step into the gym. You push open the cracked wooden door, and the hinges groan like an old man's bones. The smell that rushes out nearly stops you where you stand. Sweat, leather, mildew, and the sour tang of breath all mingle into something thick enough to choke on. You swallow hard and step inside anyway, because there is no turning back now. The basement ceiling hangs low, pipes running along it, dripping occasionally into rusted buckets. Bare bulbs dangle from fraying wires, buzzing faintly, their light too weak to chase away the gloom. Dust drifts through the air, mixing with the smoke of cheap cigars and the metallic bite of blood that refuses to leave the canvas. Your eyes adjust slowly. You see heavy bags hanging in a row, patched with tape, stuffed unevenly, with sand and sawdust. They sway slightly, not from wind but from the constant pummeling of men, whose fists rise and fall in weary rhythm. Each strike makes a dull thud, a sound that rattles up your spine, as though your bones already know what waits for them. Trainers bark orders without much conviction, their voices gravelly from smoke and years of shouting. Hands up, elbows in, again, faster. The words echo like scripture, repeated without belief, spoken because they have been spoken 1,000 times before. Men spit into the sawdust floor, dark stains spreading like rot. A few young men your age wobble around the ring, gloves too big for their hands, eyes already glassy from blows that landed too hard. A rope ring has been assembled from posts driven into the floor, sagging under the strain of years. The canvas is blotched with sweat and blood, so dark in places that it looks more like butcher's cloth than a sporting mat. A single fan turns lazily overhead, blowing stale air that does nothing to cool the heat. One of the trainers notices you. He wears a flat cap and a scowl that seems carved into his face, his nose broken long ago and never set right. A cigarette stub hangs from his lips, ash crumbling as he exhales. His eyes scan you up and down, with no warmth, no welcome, just calculation. He mutters something under his breath and waves you closer. You shuffle forward, boots sinking slightly into the sawdust. He tosses you a pair of gloves that reek of old sweat. The leather is stiff, crusted from years of use. And when you slide your hands inside, the lining clings damply to your skin. It feels like shaking hands with a corpse. The first lesson is simple. Hit the bag. The trainer shoves you in front of one of the patched heavy bags and steps back, arms crossed. You throw a clumsy punch. Your knuckles sting instantly, the pain shooting up your arm into your shoulder. The trainer grunts, unimpressed. He adjusts your stance with rough hands, jerking your shoulders into place, shoving your chin down, twisting your hips until your bones ache. Then he barks at you to try again. You do, and the pain doubles. The bag does not give, it only punishes. You keep punching because he tells you to, and because to stop would be worse than the pain. Minutes stretch into hours. Your fists swell inside the gloves, the skin on your knuckles splitting in small red cracks. Sweat stings your eyes, trickling down your face, but you do not stop. Around you, the chorus of punishment continues. A man skips rope until his calves tremble, and he collapses. Another staggers through sparring, nose broken, blood pouring down his shirt, while the trainer yells at him to keep his hands up. No one here is being taught to fight beautifully. You see no grace, no finesse, no art. The gym is not a place of skill, it is a place of endurance. The lesson is simple. Take punishment, keep standing, and maybe you'll be worth something. When your arms finally refuse to rise, the trainer smacks you hard on the back and tells you to sit. You drop onto a wooden bench slick with the sweat of whoever sat before you. The air is hot and damp, heavy with the stink of bodies ground down to their limits. Your chest heaves as you try to drag air into your lungs, and every breath tastes like iron and mildew. Across the room, two men spar while others jeer, shouting for harder hits, for blood. It does not feel like training. It feels like entertainment for the bored. You understand, even on your first day, that the line between practice and spectacle is thin here. When you stumble home that night, your fists throb, your shoulders scream and your ribs ache from the trainer's corrections. You collapse onto your cot without eating, because chewing hurts too much. By morning the bruises are worse, your hands stiff and swollen, but you return anyway. Pride would have you stay away, but hunger pulls you back. You know that if you do not endure this place, you will have nothing. So you walk back down the narrow street, open the cracked wooden door again, and breathe in the same poison air. The cycle begins anew. Days blur into weeks. Each day, You wrap your swollen hands in rags and pound the heavy bag until the skin splits open again. You spar with men bigger and stronger, fists raining down until your vision blurs. Trainers shove you back into place when you stumble, shouting that you're soft, that you're lazy, that you're weak. You keep moving anyway. Your jaw aches from blows that knock your teeth together, hard enough to chip enamel. Your ribs crack under body shots. Your stomach empties itself after you take a punch too deep. The trainers offer no sympathy, only commands. Pain is not treated, pain is expected. At night, you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, fists throbbing in time with your heartbeat. You flex your fingers and wonder if they will ever close properly again. You breathe through your mouth because your nose is swollen, half blocked. But even in the haze of pain, you cling to the thought that maybe this will pay. Maybe the bruises will become coins. Maybe the punishment will be worth something. That hope is faint, but it is stronger than despair. You see men vanish after a day or two, their pride gone along with their strength, their eyes too wide, their bodies too fragile. They do not come back. Others vanish after a single sparring match leaves them gasping on the floor. You do not vanish. You keep coming back, and that is what sets you apart. It is not talent, not skill, not grace. It is stubbornness. It is desperation. You have nothing else, so you let them beat you until you are something they can use. One evening, after another round that leaves your arms hanging limp, you slump on the bench, sweat dripping from your chin into the sawdust. The trainer with the cigarette approaches. He looks down at your swollen fists, at your bloodshot eyes, at the way your chest heaves like a bellows. He nods once, slow and deliberate, as if acknowledging a truth he had suspected. "You've had worse than this," he says, though his tone is flat. He spits into the sawdust and wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. "You're ready for a smoker." The words land heavier than the punches you've taken. You nod because there is nothing else to do. Weeks of punishment have led to this. The gym has tested you, broken you down, and now it will use you. The night comes sooner than you expect. One moment, you're throwing endless punches into patched bags, bruising your knuckles until you can no longer close your hands, and the next the trainer tells you to show up after dark. He says it like a command, not an invitation. You arrive to find the gym more crowded than you have ever seen it. The air is heavier, hotter, buzzing with voices and thick with smoke. Folding chairs line the walls, occupied by men with bottles of cheap beer sweating in their hands, their eyes sharp with the restless hunger of gamblers. The overhead bulbs, dim and yellow during the day, now blaze harshly, spotlighting the crude ring in the centre. The ropes sag, the posts creak, and the canvas glistens with the faint sheen of bloodstains that never quite wash away. Your stomach twists, not from hunger, but from nerves. You try to breathe steadily, but the air is so thick with cigar smoke and sweat that every breath burns. The crowd hums with chatter, voices rising in bursts of laughter and jeers, coins clinking as bets are placed. You see men leaning together, whispering over scraps of paper, scribbling names, exchanging bills. It dawns on you that you're not stepping into a sport. You're stepping into someone else's entertainment, a blood game where your pain will be weighed against another man's. The trainer slaps your shoulder and pushes you toward the ropes. Your legs move because they must. The ring feels smaller than you imagined, boxed in by ropes that sag as though exhausted. The sawdust floor is littered with spit, and the canvas reeks of stale blood and mildew. Your opponent is already there, another young man not much older than you. He looks just as nervous, jaw tight, fists twitching inside gloves that are no cleaner than your own. For a moment, you almost believe you might nod to each other in recognition of what this really is. Desperation, not competition. But the crowd does not allow room for sympathy. They scream for the fight before it begins, demanding blood, demanding spectacle. The bell clangs, harsh and metallic, and the first blow comes faster than you can prepare. It crashes into your jaw, snapping your head to the side. The pain is not like training. In training, the punches were punishment, dull and numbing, meant to grind you down. This is different. This is sharp, shocking, a lightning bolt that rattles your skull and leaves your teeth buzzing. You stumble, regain your footing, and swing back with a fist that connects hard against the other man's cheek. His head snaps, sweat spraying into the light. The crowd howls with delight, a chorus of drunken voices cheering not for you, but for the violence itself. You trade punches, each one heavier than the last. Your vision begins to blur, not from sweat, but from the repeated jarring of your skull against fists. Your gloves feel heavier with every swing, dragging your arms down until they barely lift. The noise of the crowd drowns out everything. Their shouts of "hit him" and "drop him" blend into a wall of sound that fills your head as thoroughly as the pain. The lights overhead burn into your eyes, leaving spots that dance in your vision, making it harder to see the next blow coming. Somewhere in the chaos, you land a clean shot. The other man stumbles, nearly falls, and the crowd roars louder. You press forward, fists swinging wild, connecting with ribs, shoulders, jaw. He recovers faster than you expect and slams a hook into your side. The pain explodes through your ribs like fire, stealing your breath. You stagger back, clutching your arm low, and he presses forward. The two of you lock in a cycle of desperation, neither skilled, neither graceful, both swinging for survival. It is not a dance, not a contest of strategy. It is two hungry men trying not to be the one who collapses first. Minutes feel like hours. Sweat stings your eyes, mixes with blood from a cut on your brow, drips down into your mouth, metallic and bitter. Your body screams at you to stop, but you keep moving, because to stop is to fall. You taste blood in your throat, thick and coppery, every breath a ragged gasp. The crowd chants for more, stomping their feet, slamming bottles against chairs. They do not see the fear in your eyes or his. They see only entertainment. The bell clangs again, though you do not know how many rounds have passed. You stumble to the corner, where a trainer presses a filthy rag against your cut, smearing blood more than cleaning it. He mutters something about keeping your hands up, though you barely hear him over the ringing in your ears. Across the ring, your opponent sits slumped, his chest heaving like yours, his eyes glassy. You realise you're both already beaten, but the crowd demands more. The bell clangs again, and you rise because you must. The final exchange is a blur. You swing, he swings, both of you landing blows that would fell weaker men, if not for desperation. Your ribs ache, your jaw burns, your legs wobble beneath you. Then, almost without realising, you land another shot that makes him stumble. He does not fall, but he falters long enough for the crowd to decide, you have done enough. They cheer louder, coins clinking as they are tossed into a hat that makes its way around the ring. You stand there swaying, fists trembling, blood dripping down your face, and you realise the fight is over. When you step out of the ring, your body feels heavier than it ever has. Your fists throb with every heartbeat. Your jaw clicks when you open your mouth. Your ribs feel cracked. The trainer presses a few coins into your hand. Not many, not enough to fix anything, but more than you have seen in months. You stare at them in disbelief. Their dull shine brighter than anything you have known lately. For the first time, the pain feels like it might mean something. The coins are proof that your body can still buy survival. The crowd disperses quickly, already arguing about the next fight, already forgetting your name, if they ever knew it. You are not remembered as a fighter, only as part of the evening's entertainment. But you carry the coins in your pocket like treasure, the edges digging into your thigh with every step, as if to remind you that this is real. You limp out of the gym into the cold night air, each breath a dagger in your ribs, your hands swollen, your face bruised. Every step hurts, but the weight of the coins, is steady, solid, undeniable. You know you will fight again, not because you crave glory, not because you imagine yourself a champion, but because the alternative is hunger and silence. And so, battered, bleeding, and barely standing, you walk home certain of one thing: you will climb back into that ring. The bruises from your first fight have not fully healed when the next one arrives. Your ribs still ache when you breathe, your jaw still clicks when you chew, and your fists still swell every morning, knuckles stiff as though they belong to another man. None of that matters. The trainer tells you there is another bout, and you go because the coins in your pocket after the first fight reminded you that pain can be converted into food. Hunger is a debt you cannot ignore, and the ring is the only way you know to pay it. This time the crowd is larger. You notice it the moment you push through the doors of the hall. The folding chairs are packed tighter, the smoke is thicker, and the noise is louder. Men in their work clothes sit shoulder to shoulder, bottles of cheap beer dripping condensation onto their boots. They lean toward one another, shouting, laughing, and cursing as they exchange money and scrawl names on slips of paper. Some of them don't even look at the ring. They look at the coins in their hands, at the bills tucked into their pockets, already more interested in the betting than in the men who will bleed for it. You step into the crude ring, and for a moment you feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing against you. You are not a person to them. You are a body, a target, a brief distraction before the next round of drinks. They jeer before the bell even rings, calling out predictions, mocking your thin frame, daring you to collapse early. The air is hot with the press of so many men, and the stench of sweat and tobacco makes your head swim before the first punch is thrown. You remind yourself that you're here for the coins, not for dignity. Dignity cannot be eaten. The bell clangs and the crowd roars, not because the fight has begun, but because the spectacle has started. Your opponent comes at you fast, swinging wild, his fists heavy with desperation, like your own. The first blow lands on your shoulder, jarring you backward, and the men in the chairs howl with glee. They are not cheering you on, they are cheering the impact. Every grunt, every stumble, every splash of sweat or spit earns another roar. The crowd does not care who lands the punch. They care that it lands, that it looks brutal enough to make the coins in their pockets feel like investments worth placing. You trade blows, your gloves thudding against flesh, his fists cracking against your jaw, and the crowd feeds on it like vultures circling a carcass. They scream for harder hits, shout for knockdowns, call out insults you can barely hear through the ringing in your ears. Their drunken laughter weaves into the rhythm of the fight until you realize it has become part of the match itself. The noise pushes you forward when your body wants to stop, drags you upright when your knees buckle, fuels you when you would rather collapse. Their appetite becomes a second opponent, forcing you to endure not just the fists in front of you, but the demands of the men outside the ropes. The lights above burn hotter tonight, their glare searing into your eyes until you see white spots drifting across your vision. Sweat pours down your face, stinging the cut on your brow that has split open again. Blood trickles into your mouth, metallic and bitter, but the crowd only cheers louder when they see it. Someone shouts, "Make him bleed more!" and another answers with a laugh. You realize with a hollow certainty that it is not victory they crave, it is punishment. They want to see you suffer, to see you stagger, to see you knocked flat against the canvas. Winning is an afterthought. The pain itself is the prize. Every time you're hit, they erupt. When your knees buckle, they howl with laughter. When your opponent reels backward from one of your punches, they shout even louder. Not because they care about you, but because the exchange is brutal. You feel their voices pounding into your skull, almost as hard as the fists, a roar that refuses to quiet. It becomes difficult to tell which hurts more, the punches you take, or the knowledge that dozens of men are delighted by your pain. You cling to the thought of the coins. You imagine their dull shine in your palm. Imagine handing them over at the grocer. Imagine a loaf of bread that isn't stale, maybe even a slab of meat. The fantasy drags your arms up when they fall. You throw another punch, land it against his ribs, and hear the crowd explode again. The noise is so loud it drowns out your own grunt of pain as his counterpunch slams into your side. You double over, gasping for breath, and the crowd shrieks with joy. Their excitement confirms what you already know. You are not a fighter in their eyes. You are a spectacle, a body to be broken for their amusement. Rounds blur together. You lose count of how many times you stagger to your feet after the bell clangs. The noise never fades. Bottles slam against the floor. Chairs scrape. Men bellow with voices hoarse from shouting. The fight itself becomes less about fists and more about endurance, about surviving the roar long enough to stand when the final bell rings. By the end, your body feels hollowed out, every limb trembling, lungs ragged, ribs on fire. You can barely see your opponent through the haze of smoke and sweat. But you keep swinging because to stop is to surrender, not just the fight, but the meagre purse waiting at the end. The bell clangs for the final time, and you sag against the ropes, too spent to raise your arms. The crowd shouts louder, coins changing hands, bills passed quickly, laughter and curses ringing through the hall. They have had their entertainment. They do not look at you as you stumble back to the corner, blood dripping down your chin, arms hanging limp. Already, they're turning to the next fight. The next pair of desperate men about to climb into the ring. You are forgotten before you even leave the canvas. A trainer presses a rag to your split lip and mutters something about keeping your guard higher, but his voice barely reaches through the buzzing in your skull. You sit on the bench, head bowed, chest heaving, and watch the coins being collected in a dented tin. The hat passes around the chairs, men tossing in change, grumbling about their bets, laughing at the outcome. You know you will see only a fraction of it. Most will vanish into the promoter's pocket, into the trainer's cut, into the smoke-thick air of the hall. Still, the thought of even a few coins is enough to hold you upright. When you finally step down from the ring, your body screams in protest. Every movement sends pain stabbing through your ribs. Your fists ache as though they've been ground to bone, and your jaw feels as if it has been unhinged. You limp toward the exit, vision swimming, ears still full of the roar that refuses to quiet. You are barely aware of the men still shouting behind you when a voice cuts through the haze. "Kid," it says, low and rough, but sharp enough to stop you in your tracks. You turn and see him leaning against the wall, a man you have not noticed before. He is dressed better than most here, his coat newer, his shoes polished, his face set in a practiced smirk. His eyes linger on you the way a butcher eyes a cut of meat. The promoter has noticed you. He beckons you with a finger, a gesture so casual it feels insulting. You follow anyway, because you're too battered and too desperate to refuse. The crowd's roar still echoes in your ears as you limp after him, past the folding chairs and the haze of smoke, toward a narrow door at the back of the hall. It opens into a room dimly lit by a single bulb dangling from the ceiling. The air is thicker here, clogged with cigar smoke that curls lazily toward the rafters. The stench of stale whiskey clings to the walls, mixing with the sour odour of sweat and mildew carried in from the ring. The man sits at a wooden table, scarred by burns and knife marks, and with a smirk that suggests he has seen this scene play out 100 times before, he pulls a folded sheet of paper from his coat and spreads it out between you. The contract looks more like a death sentence than an agreement. The paper is thin, cheap stock, but the words printed on it are dense, each line crowding the next with legal jargon that seems designed to confuse rather than clarify. You lean forward, eyes scanning the page, but the language is tangled. Vague phrases about percentages, purses, obligations, rights, and representation. The only words that stand out clearly are his name, signed neatly at the bottom, and a blank space waiting for yours. The promoter sits across from you, fingers drumming on the table, watching you with the satisfaction of a man who already knows what you will do. He talks as though the contract is a formality, as though your signature is inevitable. Glory, he says, the word stretched like taffy. Big fights. The chance to make a name for yourself? You've got grit, kid, and grit sells tickets. He grins as if he has handed you the keys to the kingdom. His teeth gleam too brightly, too carefully polished for a man who claims to live off fight money. You keep reading, but the words blur together, half hidden by the smoke burning your eyes. You catch phrases here and there. Exclusive representation. 10% of purse. Promotional rights retained. Termination at discretion. You realize quickly that this contract does not promise you fights. It promises him control. It binds you not to opportunity, but to servitude. Every clause is a chain, every paragraph a lock. You could walk away, you tell yourself, but you know better. Walking away means walking back into hunger, into the same breadlines, into the same gnawing emptiness that drove you here. The promoter leans closer, his voice lowering, smoother now, as if he senses your hesitation. He paints pictures with words, dangling them like bait on a hook. You'll be on real cards soon, not just these backroom scraps. Bigger crowds, bigger purses. I'll get your name in print, your face on posters. You keep fighting the way you fought tonight. You could go places. He taps the paper with his knuckle, smoke curling from the cigar, clenched between his teeth. All it takes is a signature. You glance down at your hands, swollen and raw from the fight. The skin on your knuckles is cracked, your fingers stiff. You imagine coins slipping through them, never enough to hold, never enough to last. You picture your mother stretching flour again, your father muttering about no work, your siblings staring at plates that are more empty than full. You know those coins in your pocket will vanish in days, maybe hours. You know you need more, and here it sits in front of you, written in ink, waiting to own you. The pen he slides across the table is cheap, metal worn smooth, the nib scratching faintly. As you pick it up, your hand trembles, not from nerves, but from fatigue, from bruises, from the weight of everything that has brought you here. You hover for a moment, the silence of the room pressing in around you, broken only by the low hum of the bulb overhead. The promoter does not speak now. He only watches, confident, waiting. The decision is already made, and he knows it. You scrawl your name in the blank space, the letters crooked, ink bleeding slightly into the thin paper. The sound of the pen scratching feels louder than the crowd ever did. You slide the paper back across the table, and he snatches it up quickly, folding it and tucking it neatly into his coat. He leans back in his chair, with a satisfied sigh, exhaling smoke in a slow, deliberate cloud. His smirk widens, the kind of smile men wear when they have purchased something cheap and valuable. There it is, he says softly, almost to himself. Now we're in business. He wastes no time. He pulls a small notebook from his pocket, flips through the pages, and rattles off names, dates, venues. Your fights are scheduled before you even stand up from the chair. He does not ask if you are ready, if your injuries have healed, if your body can withstand the next beating. He assumes correctly that you will fight whenever he tells you to. You nod at each word, though your head throbs, though your ribs still ache, though your fists feel like they're filled with stones. He is not listening for questions anyway. He only wants obedience. When you rise to leave, your legs tremble beneath you, not from fear, but from exhaustion. The room spins slightly from the smoke and the ache in your skull. You grip the back of the chair for balance, steadying yourself before stepping toward the door. The promoter does not rise. He waves you away with the flick of his hand, already reaching for the bottle of whiskey on the table, already thinking of the next desperate fighter who will wander in to sign away his future. You step back into the hallway, the noise of the crowd hitting you like a wave. Their voices are louder now, cheering for another pair of fighters, jeering at fresh blood on the canvas. For a moment, you stand there, the weight of the ink still clinging to your fingers, and you feel smaller than you ever have. The coins you earned tonight jingle faintly in your pocket, but their sound is hollow. You know now that you will never hear coins without hearing the scratch of your name on paper, without seeing his smirk across the table. You push through the smoke, past the folding chairs, past the men with their bottles and their laughter, and into the cold night air. The street is silent compared to the roar behind you, the chill biting against your bruises. You walk slowly, every step aching, the thought of your bed calling louder than any dream of glory. But you cannot shake the weight in your chest, the certainty that whatever freedom you had is gone. The contract is not an opportunity, it is ownership. The ink is still drying, and already it feels like a brand. You do not know if you will ever see your name on posters, or if you will ever climb into a ring bigger than the one you left behind. What you do know, with the clarity of a man who has just sold himself cheap, is that you are no longer your own. The fight game has taken you, and the promoter has bought you. Every punch from here on belongs not to you, but to him. You walk down the street with your fists throbbing, your ribs aching, and your jaw clenched against the thought that keeps circling in your mind. The ink just sold your body. Your days blur together until they lose their edges. Each day begins the same. Morning arrives without ceremony, dragging you from a restless sleep on a cot that smells faintly of sweat. The first order of business is running, not because you want to, but because your trainer tells you that a fighter's legs make his fists possible. You jog through streets littered with trash and cigarette butts, shoes worn thin until every stone on the pavement feels like a knife through your soles. The air in your chest burns from the cold, and your ribs ache with every stride. But you keep moving because stopping would only confirm what you already suspect, that you're breaking down before you have even begun. Breakfast is a loose term. Sometimes it is stale bread, crusts so tough you soak them in water to soften them enough to chew. Other days it is a bowl of stew, thin as broth, floating with the occasional limp vegetable, if you're lucky. More often, it is nothing at all. You step into the gym on an empty stomach, praying the ache does not show on your face. Hunger becomes as much a part of training as skipping rope or hitting the bag. It hollows you out, carves your body thinner, sharpens your bones until you feel like a walking skeleton with fists. The gym reeks worse every day. Gloves are never washed, only reused. Their insides sticky with the dried sweat of men long gone. You slide your hands into them, feeling the sour dampness cling to your skin, and wonder whose sweat you're wearing. The heavy bags sag in their centres, stuffing shifting with every blow, patched with strips of leather and tape that peel away under constant abuse. The floor beneath them is stained with dark spots where sweat, spit and blood have soaked too deeply to ever scrub clean. Sparring is worse than any fight you've had. Opponents in the ring may be desperate, but sparring partners in the gym are cruel. They hit harder than necessary, testing their strength on your body as though you were little more than a bag that could hit back. Your head snaps from hooks, your stomach buckles under body shots, your ribs throb with bruises that never have time to fade. Trainers stand by with folded arms, barking insults when you falter. Hands up, don't fold. You think he's going easy on you out there? The ring in training is not preparation, it is punishment. Your body becomes a map of injuries. Cuts reopen before they heal. Your nose, broken once already, refuses to straighten. A crooked line across your face. Your knuckles swell until they look like small stones beneath the skin, red and tender, throbbing with every heartbeat. You learn to tape them before each session, wrapping the cloth so tight your fingers turn pale, just to keep the bones from shattering outright. Rest is never granted. You spar, you stumble, you bleed, and then you're told to start over. At night, you fall into bed so exhausted, your muscles twitch in protest. Sleep does not bring peace. Dreams are full of punches, of crowds screaming, of fists coming at you from the dark. You wake drenched in sweat, your jaw aching from grinding your teeth in your sleep. You roll over, trying to stretch out the pain in your ribs, only to find it follows you everywhere. There is no relief. Pain is not an interruption of life anymore. It is the background noise of your existence. Diet becomes another form of punishment. To fight, you're told, you must make weight. Making weight means carving away what little flesh clings to your bones. You skip meals you cannot afford anyway. You spit into cups to shed ounces. You sweat in heavy coats, running until your vision swims. You drink water sparingly, rationing every mouthful. Hunger sharpens until it feels like fire in your belly, but you learn to fight it down, to pretend the gnawing is fuel rather than emptiness. The irony is bitter. Even if you had food, you would not be allowed to eat it. Your trainer watches you with narrowed eyes, arms folded, cigarette dangling from his lip. He does not see a young man, not anymore. He sees a body to be honed, stripped and hardened into something he can sell. Every pound you lose is another ounce of value to him. Every bruise another step toward the next purse. When you stagger or cough, he sneers, reminding you that there are always other men ready to take your place. You nod and continue because you know he is right. Desperation lines up outside the gym every week. Faces gaunt, eyes hollow, all of them ready to throw punches for bread money. If you stop, you vanish. The routine eats at your mind as much as your body. You forget what day it is, sometimes even what week. Time is not measured in calendars but in bruises. Monday looks like Thursday. Thursday looks like Sunday, each one blending into the next. You wake, you run, you spar, you starve, you sleep. There is no variation, no escape, only the endless cycle of fists and hunger. Men around you vanish, limping out of the gym never to return. But you remain, because you have no choice. You cling to the coins the promoter promises, even though you know most will never reach your hands. Occasionally, you hear men talk about glory. They speak of champions, of title shots, of men whose names fill the papers. You almost laugh when you hear it. You know better now. Glory is not for men like you. Glory is for the posters, the headlines, the myths the crowd clings to. What you have is repetition. You punch until your wrists give out. Then you punch again. You starve until your ribs show through your skin. Then you starve some more. Glory is a story told by the promoter to keep you climbing into the ring. But you see the truth written on the faces of the men who slump against the wall, eyes glassy, fists trembling. Weeks become months. Your body grows leaner, harder, but also more fragile. Muscles tighten but bones ache. The ache never leaves. Sometimes you wonder if the pain will ever end, if your body will ever feel whole again. The answer comes quickly every time you throw another punch and feel your knuckles flare like fire. This is not a path toward wholeness. It is a path toward erosion. Every day strips something away, leaving less of you behind. Yet you endure. You endure because endurance is all you have left. Pride has long since withered. Dignity too. Hunger is stronger than both. You look at your reflection in a cracked mirror one night after sparring. Your face is bruised, one eye swollen, your jaw crooked. You barely recognize the man staring back at you. He looks older, worn down, broken in places that cannot be repaired. But he is still standing. He is still there. And that, in this life, counts as survival. Every fight leaves something behind. A rib that cracks under a body shot and never quite knits right. A nose broken clean across the bridge. forced back into place by a rough hand, left to heal crooked. Headaches that come in waves, pounding so hard that the sound of your own heartbeat feels like a drum against your skull. You stop thinking of injuries as interruptions and start thinking of them as the natural toll of the work. Pain becomes the currency you trade, and the only question is whether you can afford to keep paying. Trainers treat you with the same care a butcher gives a carcass. A rag pressed against a cut until the bleeding slows. Whiskey poured over it to burn away whatever filth might linger. Smelling salt shoved under your nose when you collapse to the floor. No doctor is ever called. Doctors cost money, and money is not for you. You are not meant to be healed. You are meant to be patched, stitched, and shoved back into the ring before the bruises fade. When you ask if something feels broken, the trainer shrugs and tells you to keep moving. If you can breathe, you can fight. That becomes the closest thing you have to medical advice. The injuries pile up until you stop counting them. A finger jammed and swollen so large it cannot bend. A cut above your eye that splits open again and again, each fight leaving it deeper. The scar tissue thickening until the skin feels like rope. Your ears swell from punches and headlocks, puffed and misshapen. Your ribs creak when you twist too sharply. A constant reminder of blows that drove the air out of your lungs weeks ago. You carry these wounds like souvenirs no one would ever envy. Tokens of evenings spent bleeding under harsh lights while men shouted for more. The headaches are the worst. They come without warning, sudden flashes of pain that leave you dizzy, sometimes nauseous. You blink and see double, the room tilting as though you're already half drunk. You shake your head to clear it, but the pounding never really leaves. You stop telling anyone about it, because you know what the answer would be. If you can still stand, you can still fight. Admitting weakness is the same as forfeiting your place, and forfeiting means starvation. So you keep it to yourself, swallowing the pain with each breath, pretending it is normal. You learn to fight half injured. A cracked rib does not mean you sit out. It means you tighten your guard and pray your opponent does not find it. A swollen eye does not earn you a reprieve. It means you tilt your head just enough to protect it, even as your vision shrinks to a narrow slit. Sprained ankles, split lips, dislocated fingers. None of these are excuses. They are just details, background noise against the louder demand of survival. Every man in the gym is hurting. The only difference is who can keep moving despite it. Training becomes another layer of punishment. You are already broken when you climb into the ring to spar, and the men you face are just as battered. No one goes easy. A sparring partner's fist slams into your cracked rib, and you bite down hard on your lip to keep from screaming. The taste of blood fills your mouth as the trainer yells at you to throw back. You do, even though each punch sends fire shooting through your side. If you fall, the session does not stop. You are dragged up, shoved forward, told to keep going until you collapse again. The message is clear. The world will not wait for you to heal. Either you keep fighting, or you are replaced. You start to notice how the injuries linger. Cuts no longer close cleanly. They gape, reopening with every hit. Blood running down your face until it stings your eyes. Your nose whistles when you breathe, cartilage bent so many times it can no longer hold its shape. The ache in your ribs becomes constant, so familiar you almost forget what it felt like to draw breath without pain. You walk with a stiffness in your shoulders, your joints grinding when you roll them, a reminder of throws and punches that tore them loose and left them to heal wrong. The promoter never asks about your injuries. He books you anyway, confident that you will show up because you need the purse more than you need your health. When you stagger into the back room after a fight, still bleeding, he counts out coins with the indifference of a man buying feed for livestock. He pockets most of the earnings himself, hands you what little remains, and tells you the date of your next bout. You nod, pressing a rag to your split brow, and walk out into the night with your pockets jingling and your body screaming. You know you are being used, but you cannot afford not to be. There are moments, brief and sharp, when you wonder how much damage your body can take before it refuses to rise again. You sit on the edge of your cot, rubbing your temples as another headache pulses behind your eyes, and you wonder if this is the fight that will leave you blind or crippled or simply too broken to continue. The thought should terrify you, but it does not. Hunger terrifies you more. So you lace up your boots again, wrap your hands until your knuckles are numb, and drag yourself back into the gym. The men around you carry their own injuries. One limps from a knee that never healed, dragging his leg like a ball and chain. Another's ear is so swollen it looks like a cauliflower, his hearing muffled on one side. A third coughs constantly, his ribs never allowed to mend. They wear their pain openly, and you realise that the gym is less a place for fighters than a gallery of damaged men, each one displaying the cost of survival. You belong among them now. Your scars join theirs, your bruises blend into the same tapestry of suffering. And yet, despite it all, you keep stepping into the ring. The routine does not stop because you're broken. The promoter does not stop booking you because you limp. The crowd does not cheer less because your jaw is crooked or your fists tremble. They do not care. They want blood, and you still have blood to give. That is all that matters. The ring does not greet you like a stage. It suffocates you like a cellar. At the moment you step between the sagging ropes, the air closes in. Smoke stings your eyes, coiling from cigars clamped between the teeth of men who never stop shouting. Sweat drips from your forehead and lands on the canvas, but you know it will vanish into the dark stains, already there. The surface beneath your boots is slick, soaked with blood and spit from the earlier bouts, every step threatening to slide you off balance. You steady yourself on the ropes and they creak under your weight, reeking of mildew, leather, and the sour dampness of years. The lights hang low overhead, naked bulbs buzzing, their glare searing spots into your vision before the first punch is even thrown. They throw shadows that stretch across the ring, like claws. So when your opponent moves, it looks as though two men come at you at once, his body and his shadow striking together. The air itself reeks of beer, thick and yeasty, mixed with the sharp bite of cheap whiskey splashed onto the floor. Men swill from bottles, their breath drifting across the ring in waves that reach you with every roar. The stench settles in your lungs until every breath feels like swallowing a tavern's floor. Noise builds around you, rising and falling like a tide. The crowd is not here to see skill. They do not crave clever footwork or the patience of strategy. They are here for punishment. They shout for blood before the bell even rings, fists slamming against the wooden rails, bottles banging against the backs of chairs. Their voices weave together into something guttural, a chant without words, a demand for violence that rattles your bones as much as any blow. The bell clangs, and the fight begins. Though in truth it started the moment you entered the ring. Your opponent lunges forward, gloves raised, his face already glistening under the heat of the bulbs. The first punch slams into your side, right where your ribs still ache from the last fight, and pain bursts through you like fire. You bite down hard, taste blood on your tongue, and swing back with a hook that crashes against his jaw. The crowd erupts, screaming not for you, but for the sound of flesh meeting flesh, the promise of pain exchanged evenly. Sweat streams down your face, trickling into your eyes, burning. You blink furiously, trying to clear them, but the smoke thickens the sting until every blink hurts. Your lungs labour under the weight of the air, dragging in gasps that feel heavy, like you're drowning in someone else's breath. The canvas shifts slickly beneath you as the fight pushes back and forth, your boots squeaking on patches where blood has mixed with sweat into a greasy film. More than once you nearly lose your footing, and each stumble earns a roar from the crowd, eager to see you fall. Every sense is assaulted. Your ears ring with the clang of the bell, the roar of the men, the hollow thud of glove on flesh. Your nose fills with the acrid tang of sweat, the sour bite of alcohol, and the metallic sharpness of your own blood trickling down your lip. Your tongue tastes copper, salt, and the grit of sawdust kicked up from the floor. Even touch betrays you. Gloves slick with sweat until you can barely grip them, body shuddering each time a punch lands. You are no longer fighting a man. You're fighting the ring itself. The air, the stink, the heat, the crowd that feeds on you like scavengers, tearing into carrion. The fight drags on, round after round, blurring together. Each time the bell rings, you slump into the corner, chest heaving like a bellows, sweat soaking through your shirt. Your trainer jamming a filthy rag against your brow to stop the bleeding. He mutters instructions, but they vanish into the roar around you, meaningless against the pounding of your heartbeat. Across the ring, your opponent sits with his head bowed, blood streaking his nose, chest rising and falling in ragged rhythm. He is as broken as you, but the crowd does not care. They only want more. The bell clangs again, and you stagger to your feet, legs trembling, ribs screaming with every breath. The heat under the bulbs feels like a furnace now, baking you alive as you shuffle forward. You throw a jab, weak and clumsy, but it connects, snapping his head back. He charges anyway, fists swinging, and the two of you collide in the centre, bodies slamming together, the smell of his sweat mingling with yours. For a moment, it feels like drowning, suffocated not by water, but by flesh and noise. A hook lands against your temple, and the world tilts. The canvas rises up to meet you, slick and unforgiving, and the taste of it fills your mouth, bitter with old blood and dust. The crowd howls with delight as you push yourself up, legs quaking, head swimming. You force your gloves up, barely high enough to shield your face, and stumble forward again. Pain is everything now. Pain in your ribs, pain in your jaw, pain in the deep, throbbing ache of your skull. But pain is also proof that you're still here, still standing, still in the fight. The roar grows sharper as the fight nears its end. Each punch you land brings cheers. Each stumble you make brings laughter. The crowd is not divided in loyalty. They cheer for suffering itself, no matter whose body delivers it. You feel yourself moving almost without thought, fists rising and falling in rhythm with their noise. The fight becomes a blur of sensations. The wet smack of glove on skin, the sour stench of breath, the blinding flash of sweat flying into the lights. You are not a man anymore. You are a spectacle. At last, in a moment you cannot fully recall, you land the blow that turns the tide. Your fist crashes into his cheek, and he buckles, staggering backward, arms flailing for balance. The crowd erupts, a wall of sound so loud it rattles your teeth. You press forward, fists hammering, each strike weaker than the last, but enough to keep him reeling. He stumbles again, knees sagging, and the referee shoves himself between you, arms spread wide. The bell clangs, the fight is over, and you're still standing. The noise crashes over you as you sag against the ropes, chest heaving, sweat and blood dripping onto the canvas. Men stomp their boots, bottles clatter, voices rise in drunken celebration. For once, their roar feels almost like it belongs to you. You blink through the haze of sweat and smoke, barely able to see, and step slowly out of the ring, legs trembling under your weight. When you stagger toward the corner, a trainer slaps your back hard enough to jolt your aching ribs. He grins, teeth yellowed, and mutters something about a good showing. But what stays with you is not his words, not even the pain lancing through your body, but the sound of the crowd still shouting your name as you limp toward the exit. For one night, for one fleeting moment, you are more than just another body thrown into the grinder. The next morning, when the newspaper lands with a soft thud on the doorstep of the corner grocer, your name is there. A single line, a few words beneath the headline of the local card. Small type, buried beneath larger stories, but real enough. For once, the ache, The bruises, the stink of the ring, feel like they have bought you something more than coins. Your trainer slaps the newspaper with a smirk and calls you a comer, the word half praise, half challenge. Even strangers on the street glance your way differently. A nod here, a muttered, "Good scrap, kid," there. For the first time since you signed your name to that contract, you feel as if the punishment might mean something after all. The coins you carried away from the fight are still meagre, but you spend them as if they were treasure. You sit in a cramped diner, the kind where the tables wobble and the coffee tastes faintly of rust, and order a meal you have not tasted in months. A plate of meatloaf smothered in gravy, mashed potatoes piled high, green beans slick with butter. When the plate arrives, steam curling upward, you pause just to breathe it in. The smell alone feels decadent after so many weeks of stale bread and watery stew. You eat slowly at first, savouring each bite, but hunger overtakes pride, and you devour the meal until your stomach protests. You lean back, heavy and warm for the first time in months, and imagine, foolishly, that this could be your life if you keep fighting. The hope burrows in quickly, too quickly. You walk the streets afterward, with your chest a little higher, your step a little stronger, despite the bruises still blossoming across your face. If people look at you and do not see just another man in a breadline, they see someone who has stood in a ring and survived. You tell yourself that maybe this is the way out, the path that will carry you beyond hunger and obscurity. You imagine bigger fights, bigger crowds, bigger purses. You picture your name in bold print, your face on a poster, your fists raised in victory beneath brighter lights. The fantasy swells, and you do not push it away. In the gym, the trainers treat you differently now. Their insults do not soften, they never do, but their eyes linger on you longer, weighing your potential. They shove you back into sparring sessions with men who hit harder, run you through drills until your lungs sear, demand more because you have proven you can endure more. Every ache, every bruise, every swollen joint feels less like torment and more like investment. For once, the exhaustion at night is matched by the faint glow of pride. You whisper to yourself that it might all be worth it, that maybe you're climbing rather than sinking. But the hope is fragile. Between the flashes of pride, you still wake in the night with headaches pounding, your ears ringing, your ribs throbbing with each breath. The coins from your purse vanish quickly, devoured by groceries, by rent, by debts that never shrink. The meal you ate in the diner becomes a memory faster than you expected, replaced again by thin bread and tasteless stew. Yet you cling to the memory of that fullness, telling yourself that it will return, that the next fight will buy another plate, another moment of relief. Your trainer fans the flames of hope with deliberate words. "Keep this up," he mutters, cigarette dangling from his lips, "and you'll get noticed. Promoters like men who can take a beating and still stand. You've got a chin, you've got heart. Those things sell you nod, swallowing his praise like water, even though you know heart is just another way of saying you can be punished longer than most. Still, you let yourself believe. Belief is easier than the emptiness of despair. The promoter notices too. He leans on the ropes one evening as you pound the heavy bag, his smirk curling as he calls out, "Crowd liked you last time. You've got something. Keep it up and we'll move you along." His voice drips with false warmth, but you cling to the words anyway, because they are all you have. You imagine him arranging bigger fights, better venues, larger purses. You tell yourself that if you can endure the grind, the payoff will come. You ignore the truth staring back at you in every scarred face in the gym. Men who once heard the same promises and now limp through their days with nothing to show. The routine feels lighter under the weight of hope. You run with more purpose, spar with more grit, eat your crusts of bread with less bitterness. The bruises still bloom purple and green across your body, but now they look to you like proof of progress, not just punishment. You count them like rungs on a ladder. each one a step towards something better. You let yourself imagine that maybe, just maybe, the ring is not a trap, but a doorway. For one night, you even allow yourself to feel pride. You lie on your cot, staring at the ceiling, your body aching from another day of sparring, but your mind replaying the roar of the crowd. You hear your name shouted, not forgotten, not ignored. You see your name in print again, small but real. You whisper it aloud in the dark, testing the sound. As if speaking, it might make it permanent. It feels strange, fragile, almost sacred. The illusion does not last. It cannot. A week later, as you finish another punishing session, your trainer calls you over. His voice is flat, businesslike, his eyes cold with calculation. The matchmaker's got your next one lined up, he says. You wipe sweat from your brow, ribs aching, lungs burning, and nod, waiting for the details. He lights another cigarette, exhales smoke into your face, and adds, "Opponent's tougher, real seasoned, crowd'll like it." The word tougher echoes in your head for days before the fight. It hangs heavier than hunger, heavier than the throbbing in your ribs, heavier even than the headaches that pound behind your eyes at night. You know what it means. It means that the men arranging fights no longer see you as fragile. It means they believe you can survive enough rounds to give the crowd their money's worth. It means more punishment is waiting, and no amount of training can soften the blows. You keep running, keep sparring, keep eating crusts of bread to make weight, but the word never leaves your mind. Tougher. You try to convince yourself it is a compliment, but you know better. It is a sentence. The night of the fight arrives, and you step into a hall thicker with smoke and noise than ever before. Folding chairs scrape against the floor as men shuffle closer to the ring. Bottles of beer in hand, bills exchanged in hurried wagers. The air reeks of whiskey, sweat, and anticipation. The kind of anticipation that demands blood before the evening ends. You climb through the ropes slowly, boots slipping slightly on the slick canvas, and force yourself to stand tall though your legs already feel weak. Across from you, your opponent waits. He is no desperate novice. His body is hard, shoulders broad, fists heavy. His jaw carries scars of old fights, and his eyes are sharp, steady, not clouded by nerves. He is a man who's been here before, and he knows how to dismantle someone like you. The bell clangs, metallic and merciless, and he is on you before you can raise your guard. His punches are harder, sharper, endless. Each one slams into you with the weight of a hammer. His jab cracks against your face again and again, snapping your head back, stinging your eyes with tears. You try to respond, swinging wide, but he sidesteps easily, slipping your punches and punishing you with hooks that bury themselves deep into your ribs. Pain erupts through your chest, and you gasp for air, stumbling back as the crowd howls with delight. You barely last the first round. Your vision blurs after the first minute, spots dancing across your eyes as sweat and blood mix, dripping into your mouth with a bitter metallic tang. Your legs wobble beneath you, refusing to move the way you demand. Each step is slow, clumsy, leaving you open for another blow. The canvas rises toward your face for the first time when his right hook slams into your temple. You crash down, cheek grinding against the stained mat, the taste of dust and blood filling your mouth. The referee's voice counts above you, sharp and fast, but you push yourself up at 6, legs shaking, gloves trembling, because to stay down means no purse. The second knockdown comes moments later. His fists are relentless, pummeling you until your arms sag, until your guard drops, and his uppercut smashes into your jaw. White light explodes behind your eyes as you fall again, head bouncing against the canvas. The crowd roars, stamping their feet, thrilled by your collapse. You hear the referees count, as if through water, muffled, distorted. At 7, you stagger to your feet again, swaying, vision doubled. The referee studies you briefly, his expression bored, then waves the fight on. The punishment continues. Each knockdown feels like a small death. Something inside you slips away each time you hit the canvas. Something that does not return when you drag yourself upright. The first was dignity. The second, hope. By the third, when his glove slams into your cheekbone and sends you sprawling once more, you feel your memory stutter, your thoughts scatter like coins knocked from a table. You grope blindly at the ropes, pulling yourself up, hearing the crowd screaming for blood, their voices fusing into one monstrous demand. You rise because instinct tells you to, but your body is already breaking. Your trainer's voice cuts through the noise from the corner, telling you to keep your hands up, to move, to throw back. The words are useless. Your arms hang heavy, too heavy to lift, your gloves slick with sweat and blood. You stumble forward, trying to jab, but your opponent bats it aside as though swatting a fly. His counterpunch slams into your stomach, doubling you over. You retch bile and blood flooding your throat, but you force yourself upright again, gasping through the fire in your lungs. Another hook lands against your ribs, and you hear something inside you crack. The crowd shrieks with glee at every impact. They chant, laugh, howl, raising their bottles in celebration of your suffering. To them, you are not a man being broken. You are an evening's entertainment, a spectacle worth the price of admission. Each time you collapse, they roar louder, their voices pounding in your ears, shaking your skull as much as the fists do. You feel yourself shrinking under their gaze, every part of you reduced to a target, a body to be dismantled for their pleasure. By the fourth knockdown, your body refuses to rise quickly. You lie on the canvas longer, your cheek pressed against the damp surface, sweat soaking into your skin, blood seeping from your split brow. The referee counts, his voice distant, and you push yourself up at 9, legs wobbling dangerously. He waves you on again, though it is clear you can barely stand. Your opponent shows no mercy. His fists keep coming, precise, brutal, unending. He drives you back into the ropes, each punch hammering you until you sag against them. Barely upright, the ropes creak under your weight, sticky with mildew and sweat, smelling of rot as you lean into them. Another blow slams into your jaw, snapping your head back. For a moment, the lights blur together into a single white haze. You hear the crowd roar, but it feels far away now, like thunder on the horizon. Your legs buckle and you crumple forward, collapsing onto the canvas once more. You try to push yourself up, but your arms betray you, trembling, useless. Your chest heaves, ribs screaming, lungs clawing for air that will not come. The referee's voice counts above you, sharp and merciless. 1, 2, 3. The numbers march forward, faster than you can breathe, faster than you can think. You dig your gloves into the mat, try to shove yourself up, but your arms give out. The canvas is rough against your cheek, sticky with sweat and blood, its smell filling your nose until you gag. 4, 5, 6. The crowd chants along, screaming for your failure, reveling in your collapse. At 7, you push again, but your body does not respond. At 8, you roll slightly, head spinning, the room tilting. At 9, you know you're not rising. At 10, the referee's voice cuts through the haze, final and absolute. The fight is over. You lie sprawled on the canvas, vision fading, the roar of the crowd crashing over you like a wave. They do not mourn your fall, they celebrate it, cheering louder for your failure than they ever did for your effort. They half carry, half drag you into the back room, dropping you onto a cot that smells of mildew and stale sweat. Your ribs scream with every breath, your head pounds like someone has lodged a hammer behind your eyes, and your mouth is coated with the metallic taste of blood. A trainer presses a rag to your face, not out of care but out of habit, muttering that you'll live. When someone finally drops a few coins into your hand, you can feel without counting that most of your fight money has already been skimmed by the promoter, the trainer, and anyone else who decided they deserved a share of your pain. What remains is pitiful. Enough for rent, perhaps, or for a few days of food, but not both. The room is dim, lit by a single bulb swinging faintly on its cord. The air smells of mildew and smoke, and beneath it lingers the sour stink of sweat that has soaked into the cot's thin blanket. A trainer sits slouched in a chair nearby, smoking, his eyes half-lidded, indifferent. He does not look at you with concern. He looks at you like a man watching a furnace cool down, already thinking of the next fire he'll light. You sit up slowly, clutching your side, and reach for your boots. Your hands tremble as you fumble with the laces. The simple act of tying them feels impossible. Your fingers do not obey, stiff and clumsy, as though they belong to someone else. You stop and stare at them, noticing how swollen they are. The knuckles split and raw, the skin stretched thin over bone. They look like tools already worn out, rusted by overuse. And you wonder how many more fights they can withstand before they fail completely. As you sit there, trying again and again to force the laces through the eyelets, you realise there are gaps in your memory. You remember the opening bell, the first barrage of punches, the sharp pain when your ribs gave way. You remember hitting the canvas, the roar of the crowd, but after that, everything is fog. The moments between knockdowns blur together into fragments, disjointed and incomplete. You cannot remember how many times you fell or how many times you rose. You only know you collapsed in the end, sprawled on the canvas while men shouted for your failure. The realization chills you more than the injuries. If memory itself can be erased by fists, how much of you will be left after the next fight? The trainer stubs out his cigarette and mutters something about getting back to work. His voice is flat, tired, as though your suffering is a nuisance more than a concern. He tells you to come back tomorrow, that you cannot afford to fall behind. You almost laugh, though it would hurt too much. Fall behind? You can barely stand, can barely breathe, but you nod anyway, because what else is there to do? To refuse would be to vanish, to be replaced by another desperate young man willing to take the punishment in your place. You know the line is long, and no one will miss you if you disappear. You limp out of the hall into the cold night air, clutching the coins in your fist, as if they might vanish if you let them go. The street is empty, silent, except for the distant bark of a dog and the faint hiss of a street lamp. Each step jars your ribs, sending pain lancing through your chest, but you grit your teeth and keep moving. You tell yourself the purse is worth it, that the coins will buy food, that they will prove the fight was not for nothing. But even as you repeat the thought, you know it is a lie. The fight was for the crowd, for the promoter, for the men who bet and won, for everyone but you. When you finally reach your building, you climb the stairs slowly, each one a mountain. You push open the door to your room and collapse onto your cot, clutching your side, gasping. The silence is heavy, pressing in around you. You lie there staring at the ceiling, the shadows of the bulb swaying back and forth, and you wonder how many more nights like this you can endure. Your head throbs, your body aches, and your memory flickers with holes. You try to picture your life beyond the next fight, but you cannot. All you can see is the canvas rising toward your face again and again, the roar of men demanding more. The next morning brings no relief. You wake with your ribs stiff, your head pounding, your fists swollen. You drag yourself upright, moving like an old man, though you're still young. Your reflection in the cracked mirror startles you. One eye is swollen shut, your lips split, your jaw crooked. The face staring back looks older, worn, already ground down by years of punishment, though only months have passed. You splash water on it, trying to wash away the blood and sweat, but the bruises remain, painted across your skin like reminders of failure. You eat what little food you can afford, stale bread softened with water a handful of beans boiled until they collapse. It does not fill you. It never does. Hunger gnaws at you, even as you chew, a hunger that food cannot soothe anymore. It is the hunger for something beyond this life, for a future that does not seem to exist. You push the thought away, because thinking too much only makes the pain worse. Better to keep moving, keep working, keep pretending that another fight might bring more than coins that vanish overnight. When you return to the gym, the routine swallows you again. The bags thud beneath your fists, the ropes creak under your weight, the air reeks of sweat and mildew. Nothing has changed, not even the faces of the men around you, each one battered, each one enduring the same cycle of punishment. You wrap your hands slowly, fingers trembling, knuckles aching, and you climb back into the ring. The trainer watches with his arms folded, cigarette dangling from his lips, eyes cold. He does not ask about your injuries, does not ask if you're ready. He only tells you to move faster, hit harder, endure longer. You realise then that everyone else has made money off your pain. The promoter lined his pockets, the gamblers collected their winnings, the crowd drank and roared, the trainer took his cut. You are the only one left broken and empty, the only one who pays in flesh while others profit in coin. The unfairness of it presses down on you, but you know it will not change. This is the fight game. This is how it works. And so, with your ribs aching, your head pounding, and your memory flickering with gaps, you force yourself back into training. Not because you want to, not because you believe in glory anymore, but because you don't know what else to do. Years pass, though you hardly notice them at first. One fight blurs into another, one bruise into the next, until the seasons change without ceremony. What you once thought of as a career begins to feel more like a sentence, time measured not in opportunities but in scars. The sharp hope you once carried fades, replaced by the dull rhythm of survival. You rise, you fight, you fall, and you repeat. Somewhere along the way, the crowd stops looking at you as a possibility. You are not a prospect anymore. You are an opponent, a body placed in the ring to sharpen the skills of hungrier men. Your name is the one matched against a promising record. The detail gamblers skip over on the betting slips. The younger fighters come at you with fists that crack like pistons, their bodies fresh, their faces unscarred. They fight with the kind of hunger you once knew, but theirs is sharper, cleaner, fueled by youth and the belief that glory is still possible. They batter you easily, their punches carrying the speed and strength that yours have lost. When you swing, your fists feel heavy, dulled by years of damage. They no longer carry sting. You know the feeling of your blows landing and doing nothing, bouncing harmlessly off muscle and bone, while your opponent barely flinches. The weight shifts in the ring. No longer a contest, but a ritual. You are there to fall. Your bones ache constantly. It is no longer just the bruises that throb after fights. It is every joint, every tendon, every breath. Your ribs grind when you twist. Your knuckles flare when you close your hands. Your jaw clicks each time you chew. You tape your hands so tightly before sparring that your fingers go pale. But the relief lasts only until the first punch lands. Pain is no longer something that comes and goes. It is permanent now, carved into you like initials into wood. You begin to drink more than you should. At first, it is only after fights, whiskey burning away the ache in your ribs, numbing the pounding in your skull. Then it becomes a glass after training, just enough to dull the stiffness in your hands. Soon it is a glass before training, to quiet the headaches that leave you dizzy. Drinking becomes another routine, layered into the days until you barely notice when one glass turns into 3, when evenings vanish in a haze. The liquor softens the pain, but it also softens you. Your punches grow slower, your reflexes dull. You feel it in the ring, the hesitation, the heaviness, the way your body lags just a moment too long. The trainer notices but says nothing. You are no longer worth fixing. You are only worth using until you collapse. Losses pile up like stones. Each fight ends the same. A younger man, quick and ruthless, tears through you. The referee's count feels faster each time, and you lie on the canvas longer, staring at the stained lights above, too weary to rise before 9. Sometimes you make it up, staggering on legs that refuse to obey, only to be sent crashing down again. The crowd stops roaring for you. They cheer only when you're hit. They laugh when you stumble. You are no longer someone to root for. You are someone to mock, someone to bet against. The promoter grows colder with each defeat. Where once he smirked and promised bigger fights, now he barely glances at you. He counts your cut with fingers too quick, hands you the coins without looking, already turning away to talk to a younger fighter. You see him pat shoulders, offer advice, grin at the men who still have futures. He calls them kid with warmth. He tells them they've got a shot. You remember when he said the same to you, and the memory stings worse than any punch. Even the gym becomes alien. You stand in the corner, wrapping your ruined hands while the trainers shout encouragement at fresh faces. Their voices crack with excitement as the young men land crisp jabs, fast hooks, clean footwork. They laugh when a sparring partner reels back, slap shoulders when the rounds end with energy still in their lungs. You are not given equals anymore. You are thrown against the young. Their fists pummeling you while the trainer calls instructions to them, never to you. You stagger, sag against the ropes, guard barely raised, and they are praised for breaking you down. You are not a fighter to them anymore. You are a tool, a practice dummy, a lesson for men who will one day replace you. You try to fight it. You run until your lungs burn, pounding the pavement in the cold dawn, hoping to find the legs you once had. You pound the heavy bag until your knuckles split, telling yourself that strength can be forced back into your fists. But the truth is written in your reflection. The cracked mirror shows a face swollen and scarred, one eye half closed from damage, a nose crooked from breaks. You shadowbox in front of it, but your arms move slow, your body hunched. The man staring back at you is not a prospect. He is the picture of decline. The bottle becomes your comfort more than food, more than rest. Nights stretch long and empty, so you drink until the memories of knockdowns blur. For a few hours you forget the roar of the crowd when you fell. You forget the laughter, the count, the way the referee waved the fight off while your opponent raised his arms. But the morning always comes, and with it the ache, the shame, and the taste of defeat in your mouth. You know the liquor makes you worse in the ring, but by then it no longer matters. You are fighting not to win but to survive, and whiskey becomes the cheaper salve. Weeks turn into months between fights. Then months turn into silence. You sit in your room staring at the walls, listening for the phone that does not ring. The coins you manage to save dwindle into nothing. Hunger creeps back, the same hunger that once drove you into the ring. You pace the floor, restless, waiting for the promoter's call. When it comes, it is for mismatches, bouts arranged to pad someone else's record. You accept anyway, because the alternative is nothing. Each time you enter the ring, the humiliation grows. The crowd sighs when you fall, eager to move on to the real fights. You drift into bars because there is nowhere else to go. The gym no longer wants you, the promoter no longer calls, and the streets are too empty to offer distraction. Bars at least are warm, smoky, filled with the sound of laughter that does not require you to participate. You sit in the corner with a cheap glass of whiskey, and sometimes someone squints at you through the haze. "Didn't you used to fight?" they ask, voice uncertain, as though they are trying to place a face half-remembered from a dream. You nod because denying it would be worse. They usually shake their heads, mutter something about how tough you must have been, then turn back to their drinks. They never ask your name. They never recall which fight they think they saw you in. Recognition has dulled into a vague outline, and soon even that will vanish. Your name disappears from the posters. Where once it was printed, small but there, now it is gone, replaced by younger men, with fresher faces and sharper jaws. Their nicknames are flashy, their records padded, their promoters eager to sell them as the next big thing. You walk past the posters on your way to the bar or the grocer, and you study the names, trying to memorize them, though they mean nothing to you. You know each one will follow the same path you did, stepping into the ring with hope, leaving with scars, and vanishing when their usefulness runs out. But for now, the world believes in them, and the paper has no room left for you. The newspapers stop printing even the smallest line. No more buried mentions of your fights. No more scores tucked between ads for whiskey and cigarettes. Your absence is not noticed. It is not marked. You are not a story anymore, not even a cautionary tale. You are a silence, swallowed by the machine that once chewed your body into coins. You realize with a hollow clarity that erasure does not happen all at once. It happens gradually, name by name, line by line, until there is nothing left to forget. You watch new fighters rise from the same gyms where you once bled. They are young, hungry, their eyes bright with the same desperate fire you once carried. They pound the heavy bags with speed, their gloves snapping like gunshots. Trainers clap their shoulders, call them kid, feed them the same lines about heart and grit and the chance at glory. You know where they are headed. You know the aches waiting for them, the breaks, the slow grinding down. But they do not know, not yet. They see only possibility. You want to warn them, to tell them what the ring really is, but you keep silent. No one would listen. Hunger drowns warnings faster than whiskey drowns pain. The nights grow longer, quieter. You sit in bars nursing drinks until the room blurs around you. Men laugh, play cards, shout at each other over games of pool, but their voices wash over you without meaning. You drift in and out of their noise, hearing only fragments, your mind slipping elsewhere. Sometimes you think you hear the clang of the bell again, the thud of gloves on flesh, the roar of a crowd that is not really there. You glance around the room, half expecting to see men in folding chairs, cigars clamped in their teeth, shouting for you to fall. Instead, you see only strangers who do not know your name. The body that once carried you through fights becomes more of a burden each day. Your joints stiffen until climbing stairs leaves you breathless. Your ribs ache with every turn, a constant reminder of blows that never healed. Your head pounds in rhythms you cannot escape. The headaches lingering longer, sharper, until sometimes the world tilts when you rise from your chair. You drink to dull it, but the liquor only makes you stumble more, makes the floor seem unsteady, even when it is not. You begin to wonder how much of your body still belongs to you, and how much has been left behind in the rings, in the sweat-soaked canvases, in the roar of crowds who never cared. Conversations about fighting happen around you, but never with you. Men at the bar argue about the new fighters, who will rise, who will fall. They talk of prospects, of rankings, of names printed bold across the sports pages. You sit silent, listening, your glass sweating in your hand. No one asks your opinion. No one remembers that you were once part of it. To them, you are another face in the room, a man who drinks too much, who flinches at loud noises, who moves stiffly as though carrying invisible weights. The fight game has moved on without you, as it always does. You pass the gyms occasionally, unable to resist glancing inside. The smell wafts out to you, sweat, leather, mildew, and for a moment you're back inside, fists pounding the bag, ribs aching, trainers barking. You see young men sparring, their movements sharp, their skin unscarred, their futures still intact. They do not notice you at the door. They are too busy chasing the dream that once carried you inside. You step away quickly, unwilling to admit that the sight of them stings more than any punch you ever took. Time continues its slow work, erasing you more thoroughly than any promoter or trainer could. The men you once fought are forgotten too, their names fading, their faces unremarked. The crowds who jeered and cheered have moved on, their evenings of blood long replaced by new entertainments. Even the scars on your body begin to fade in memory, though not in pain. You try sometimes to recall specific fights, specific nights when the noise shook the walls and the lights burned above you. But the details blur. You remember only flashes. The smell of cigars, the sting of sweat in your eyes, the feel of the canvas against your cheek. The rest is lost, scattered, unreachable. You sit alone more often now. The bars grow emptier, or perhaps you have become better at noticing the silence between voices. You stare into your drink, the whiskey flat and bitter, and listen to echoes that no one else hears. Phantom roars curl around the edges of your mind, crowds screaming for blood, chanting for knockdowns, cheering for failures. You know they are not real. You know the men who once shouted are gone, and their voices would not have remembered you, even if they stayed. But the echoes remain, stitched into your memory as tightly as the scars on your skin. In the end, you sit in silence, your hands trembling, your ribs aching, your mind drifting. You hear the phantom roars of crowds that never really cheered for you, and you realise that the illusion was always theirs, never yours. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Not the romantic image of boxing as a noble art, where courage and grit earn glory beneath the lights, but the reality of basement rings reeking of sweat and smoke, promoters pocketing the purses, and young men broken down until they vanish into silence. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with another forgotten corner of history you'd like explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S. and Rich Davis. Sleep well.